This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me, as usual, are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
We've got three very different films to look at tonight. It is a very eclectic mix. Are they any good? We shall find out. We're going to kick off with Operation Napoleon, Frozen Conspiracy. Then we have The Inhabitant and Lock and Load. Our short shot this week is The Gateway Drug, and we round up with our DTV Throwback, Starry Eyes. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Operation Napoleon, Frozen Conspiracy. When her brother makes an accidental discovery up on an Icelandic glacier, lawyer Kristin finds herself pulled into a dangerous conspiracy which dates back to the end of the World War II and involving some very powerful people. I'm going to throw this straight over to Steve, actually. I want to hear what Steve has to say about this one before I spout off. Steve, what did you make of Operation Napoleon?
All right. What I found, it doesn't tell you what's going on or what the look. It's right at the very end when it's finished, and there's a big exposition dump right at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Where it finally clicks into place. And that to me was too much. It didn't give you enough during the film to build any suspense or excitement, really. And it was just a bit of, a cat and mouse. But just a bit flat, what I found. It didn't get me riled up or edge of the seat or anything like that.
Okay. Rich, any thoughts from you on Operation Napoleon?
Well, I want to hear what you've got to say first.
I really enjoyed this. This is what, again, we've had a number of films this year, like the pinball one, like that horror one set on the farm, something lodge. Yeah, that one.
Little Bone Lodge.
Little Bone Lodge, there you go. Films which seem to come out of nowhere and just very quietly blow your socks off, basically. I knew nothing about this film. When I read the title, I feared it was going to be some sort of asylum level, cash in on the Napoleon biopic that Ridley Scott's doing. I thought, it's going to tie into that kind of thing or something. And we get something completely different. My interest started peaking when I could see it was an Icelandic film or produced in Iceland, and then you got Ian Glenn turning up in it as well, and I was really intrigued by it. The brother finds the thing on the glacier, and inside there was a couple of really interesting sort of bits. There's one thing he finds which actually made me go, wow, that's interesting, really, really, really interesting. And I was intrigued, to find out. I didn't mind the fact that they didn't know what was going on, because it is, why would the bad guys tell them? They wouldn't waste their breath sort of telling them what was going on. That they don't want them to know. So I didn't mind that bit. What we do find out right at the end does actually sort of have a bone of truth about it as well. The thing about the train is actual, it is a quite well known thing.
Yeah.
A long held sort of rumor, or urban legend, whatever you want to call it. That sort of emanated from World War II. But I really, really like this. over to you, Rich.
Yeah, no, I'm similar line to you, really. I was sort of quite, seeing the title and the cover, the artwork and stuff. I didn't quite know what I was going to get, but what we get is a Hollywood style thriller with the budget to match, and this is very. I mean, do you remember in the 1990s when we had this whole spate of conspiracy thrillers?
Things like the Pelican Brief and things like that. You know, it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, Julia Roberts doing Pelican Brief and Conspiracy Theory, and you had all the other ones, and all these other ones, and this would fit into that mold. It fits in that mold. You can compare it to the, Da Vinci Code and all that sort of that. They all follow the same kind of structure, and I would say there's nothing particularly apart from the Icelandic location setting. The mixture of English language and Icelandic language was quite interesting because it's clearly trying to play to a bigger audience, and it starts off with some English, but then it goes into Icelandic, but a lot of the film is actually in English, even though it is very much an Icelandic film. It's all about the two characters on the run trying to find out what's going on. They go from place to place, getting information. The guy who our heroine, because she gets framed, she's got to try and find out what's going on, prove her innocence, all that sort of stuff. The guy she teams up with is a Brit, so then she has to speak English for the whole film, and then various people they encounter usually end up being either English or American, or English or American, or speaking, even the Icelandic people. So it's got a very cross-cultural kind of feel to it, which is probably the only really distinctive thing about it. But that's not a bad thing. I think sometimes all you need is a really nice, familiar, warm blanket kind of movie, and I think that's what this is. It's something you've seen a lot before, but there's some little novel things about it. The actual the setup with the discovery, and there's a little link to global warming in there, and that's kind of brought it about. All the conspiracy stuff is really nice. Ian Glenn's really good. He's playing like an American. I think he's a senator, or not a senator, but he's like a high level in the government kind of guy who's kind of running this operation. There's a
CIA, is it?
Yeah, he's a CIA.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I think
CIA agent. Yeah.
There's this woman leading his sort of hit team, and she's like really nasty. She's doing this stuff with a pencil and stuff. It's pretty gross. And but the locations are really great. It's making the most of the Icelandic setting. It's very much vistas. There's lovely cityscapes and the town. The wilds. The snow-covered landscapes and stuff. Really liked it a lot. I like the cast as well. We mentioned Ian Glenn, but the Icelandic actors in it, Vivian Olafsdottir, who is Kristen. She was, I believe, in Cop Secret, which we watched last year.
Yeah.
And I particularly liked Olafur Dari Olafsson, who played Einar, who's a really big guy. He's got a lot of character. He's really good. And there's some nice banter and interplay between them. So they kind of stood out to me. The director is someone we covered way back at the start of his last film, I think it was. We covered I Remember You in our 41st episode back in 2017.
All right.
I'm not sure 100% whether that was his last. No, it was. I think it was his last feature, because he's done a lot of TV work, including the Riviera series, which I think Jack Fox, who's in this film, I think he was in the Riviera series. I'd have to double check that. But I say if this is the kind of movie that I would have, I'd have watched it with my nan kind of movie. It's like it's inoffensive. It's really watchable, really entertaining sort of thriller. It's based on a novel by I think it's Arnaldur Indrason. I can't pronounce it, but it is actually available in English. You can pick up the novel.
That's one of the things that sort of like perked me up as well. Sort of, you know, when it came up saying it was based on a book, I thought, okay, well, somebody's, you know, definitely put a bit of effort into this, because if it was like a sort of typical DTV thing, you know, you wouldn't get that element. It would be some sort of very generic script sort of thing. So I was quite sort of hopeful going into it from that point.
Yeah, I think you can as well. That like that big, like Steve was saying, that big exposition dump at the end. That's very much like a book kind of thing to do.
Yeah,
you wouldn't normally do that. You would normally structure it probably slightly differently for a movie. So it's kind of a bit. It is a bit weird the way they do that at the end. I don't mind it, but it's kind of a very big epilogue kind of thing. And you know, is it over? Ooh, kind of thing. It's
well,
like they're trying to do too much at the end, I think. Because it's like the film feels like it reaches an end point and it doesn't really need any more, even though they haven't explained everything. It feels like it could have ended at a point, and then it just kind of goes on, which is fine, but it's kind of I don't know, over egging the pudding or whatever. But I didn't mind. I really liked it. I thought it was great. It was one of the films I've most enjoyed watching so far this year, I think.
The whole bit at the end with the airplane as well, that was just really, really well done. You know, that whole sequence, really good.
There's some slightly ropey visual effects, but for the most part, everything is top quality, I think, in this film.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that was the thing that with me. I mean, like you said, the money's there, the performances are there. I just thought the script was pretty generic, to be honest.
It is. I think you're right. I think it is absolutely generic. But for me, I didn't mind that. I was quite happy to be sort of carried along with the familiarity of it all.
Absolutely.
I think I was wanting a bit more. So, you know, I don't know. It just felt a little flat and a bit too long as well. I think you could have took about a good 10, 15 minutes out of it.
I think like so, yeah.
It's one of them, bit like Return of the King. It's like 3 endings. You know?
the only thing that, you know...
It got to the point and I checked and I'm like, hang on, there's still 15 minutes left here. What are they going to do?
The only thing that sort of got to me a little bit watching this is you could make a drinking game out of the number of times the henchman loses Kristen and then goes, fuck. You know, because it's like every couple of minutes, like, fuck. And it's like, lost her again. Because, you know, it's like, you're supposed to be the best henchman, and you're letting this woman slip through your fingers time and time again. It's ridiculous.
Again, that's one of the cliches of the thing, isn't it? Everything's so familiar. It's like there's this one guy who's sort of leading. He's trying to hunt them down, and
because he starts brilliantly, that guy. You know, when he turns up at her apartment.
Oh yeah.
That whole bit was great. But after that, he becomes kind of like the cartoon henchman. It's like, you know, curses.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. His villainy does peak a bit too early. I think that's fair to say. I also want to say the old English lady they run into. I was watching her. I was thinking, I've seen her and stuff. She's like one of those character actors who you just you see loads time and time again. I've just looked her up. Her name's Annette Badland, and she has indeed been in pretty much everything, like Midsummer Murders, EastEnders, all that sort of stuff. The Crown. So I thought I thought this was a really good role for her. You know, she's playing this really tough lady. Gets a really great scene. I love when she goes down into the sort of the conspiracy room, as it were. You know, where she's got all the stuff pegged up and all this sort of stuff. And there's a nice little assault on the house sequence and everything. So I enjoyed. Yeah, there was so many things that I really just sort of really enjoyed about this film. If it was more, I think I would have been more interested if it was more in Icelandic than English. But possibly. I didn't mind at all. I think it's great. I hope that a lot of people go and check it out. I think the cover art that Signature Entertainment are used with the Frozen Conspiracy sort of tagline is slightly.
Is it the one with the Northern Lights?
Some of the other artwork. I think so. Yeah. I think that's the one where it's got sort of a bunch of people standing. You know, it's Ian Glenn front and center on the poster, I think. And hang on, I'm just going to look it up now. Yeah, so it's got it's Ian Glenn with the Ina standing behind him with a rifle, and that I just think it's fine, but it doesn't quite sell the movie. I don't think. I think there's some really nice artwork that was used in other territories that's really quite evocative and mysterious looking. That I think sort of it looks more intriguing. But that's a say on the side. I think anyone listening to this, they should definitely go and check this out. If you're fans of thrillers, if you're fans of the actors involved like Ian Glenn and stuff, you're going to get a lot out of this, I think.
Absolutely. And on that note, how are we going to score it? Over to Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I'm joining you on an 8. This is exactly this. I did tweet about it the other day, and I said this is exactly the sort of thing I cover DTV for. Basically, it's these absolute sort of gems, these surprises that sort of pop up in between all of the pursuits and fortresses and bullshit. Cool. So 2 8s and a 6 for Operation Napoleon. Go check it out. Our next film is The Inhabitant. Tara is a troubled teen just trying to make sense of the world around her when she is beset with disturbing nightmares which might be linked to her ancestor, the notorious axe murderer Lizzie Borden. This is an interesting film. I'm not sure how much I like it. I certainly admire lots of it. And it's one of these films that you could almost take the horror out, the sort of more supernatural bits, and still be left with a pretty intense family drama, which is a good thing. I think some of the supernatural bits are a bit confusing. I think it almost sort of loses track where it is sometimes. But the visuals are pretty good, I have to say. It's an interesting one. It does something a bit different, and as I said, the underlying sort of family drama sort of helps sort of bolster it for sure. Steve, what did you make of The Inhabitant?
Yeah, it's interesting, but like you say, not 100% sure where I stand on it. I thought the Lizzie Borden?
Borden,
yeah, angle was interesting. Is that a legend or is it like a true?
No, it's a true story. Yeah, she supposedly killed her parents and a younger brother or something, and got away. Found not guilty.
Yeah, because I remember I've seen like the Chloe 7U one from a couple of years ago. I remember that coming out and stuff like that.
There was a TV series with Christina Ricci about
that might be the one.
Yeah.
That might be the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'll be kind of put that in into the plot and the start of it. But it's very generic. And the twist is you can see it coming from an absolute mile off. About halfway through, I was like, "Yeah, I know what's going on here." You can just tell. And what performances are good? Dermot Mulroney's a bit wasted, to be fair. He's hardly in it.
He's looking old, isn't he?
Yeah, someone said that the other day. I can't remember what it was on. But even in I just finished watching Secret Invasion. Even in that, he's looking. He is looking like he's knocking on a bit now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose he is, to be fair, but
let's face it, we all are. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he was okay. He just needed a bit more to go with it. I thought it was a bit. There's no jump scares or anything like that. There's no build of anything. It's just when the kills do come, they're quite quick and over and done with, and it's just move on to the next thing. And there's no tension building there. I just a bit disappointed.
Yeah, I think the sort of horror element is sort of overshadowed a bit by the sort of the family side of it, and the horror bit feels a bit rushed as a result. Steve, sorry, Rich. What did you make of this, and what do you make of the the opening sort of scroll that we get? Sort of, you think that was a bit sort of heavy-handed, sort of setting the scene with that?
I don't, no, I thought that was fine. I thought it was good. The problem was it was too blooming quick to read. I was like, I don't know if it's might just be me being a slow reader, but I actually had to go back and pause it and stuff to actually try and get through the line. Oh, you did the same. Yeah. So even because it's like a couple of lines, and then a little bit more, and that's fine. This is one. Setting up the thing. There's a legend. This is one of those stories, that kind of thing. I thought that's fine. That's sort of sets it up quite nicely. I really liked this from the start. I sort of got drawn in by the good production values and the sort of atmosphericness. I quite like sort of teen thriller horror kind of stuff. Like some of some of the stuff like Bella Thorne does and stuff like that. That's been quite interesting. This is very much sort of it's one of those films that's like a character portrait. What's a mental state and all this sort of stuff. And I think you're right. Maybe it's trying to do too many things. Like you've got a legitimate mental state, but then they throw in these, overt horror elements, like ghostly horror elements, I say, and they sort of try and mix it up. And sometimes maybe the balance isn't quite right. Maybe, I don't know. At times, I think I will say I liked the first two acts, better than the last act. I thought the final half an hour or whatever was fine, but it was more the build up. Basically, when they go to the guest house, I'll say, before everything before that, I think I enjoyed a lot more. I think once they got there, lots of other stuff starts happening, and then obviously you get the twists and things thrown in at the end, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. I don't mind all that. But I think the sort of original, the sort of establishing of, like you say, the family dynamics, Odessa Azion as Tara, the lead character, all the sort of unspoken sort of angst about the family lineage, and is it a hereditary insanity? They do all this stuff with the aunt. They mention the aunt and stuff, and she does the thing where she goes to see her and stuff like that. But it's quite throwaway actually. It's sort of, she goes to see the aunt. It's a couple of minutes and that's it. Whereas it felt like that was going to be more of a more significant part than it was. And then it comes away, and then it all starts to be about seances and stuff like that. But the Lizzie Borden thing is a very sort of ingrained in American culture, I think, and we don't really know much about it over here, sort of like passively from a couple of things. But I think it's fine. I think it worked into that sort of mythology quite well. But I would still say performances. I thought the cinematography and the sort of the theme and the thing. I just like a nice standard thriller, and this sort of gave me that.
I found sort of the sort of nightmare sequences to be quite effective. Like there's one where she's in the room with the baby and she's got the axe. She's like accidentally cuts her leg with it, as if it's like, no, this is real sort of thing. This is actually happening. I thought that stuff was great, but I found the actual murders that were happening were totally disassociated from Taro. You never got the feeling like, oh, could it be her killing people? And I never once really sort of thought that. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, it has to be something else. Unfortunately, even with those dream sequences, sort of say, well, yeah, obviously there's that sort of connection. But overall, as you say, good production values. It could have done with a bit more sort of blood and guts, basically. You got an axe, for God's sake.
There's a couple of quite bloody moments. I thought there was one or two bits that I think.
I mean, the family dynamics on Twitter. There's somebody I follow called Ask Aubrey, and she puts together. She collates all these really horrible stories about sort of men being arseholes and stuff. There's a thing on Reddit called "Am I the Arsehole?" where people sort of like basically confess being an arsehole and then ask the question. And there's stories on there which resonated with what was in this. You know, the whole thing with sort of the dad that was getting creepier and creepier basically as the film went on. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it did sort of strike us being quite, unfortunately, you know, true to life. But
I was thinking with say one of the characters in that situation, they kind of they try to do like an about face, and I don't think it quite works.
Yeah,
because I think from what's established earlier, there's no real other, you know, it's quite sinister the way it is presented, and I don't think there's any other way you could explain it, and then it's kind of brushed away at the end. I just that didn't quite gel for me.
Yeah,
that sort of
there are elements which sort of like not quite there. I think is what we're saying. Yeah,
they tried to go aha, but but it's almost like, well, not really. It's not really aha because of that thing that we, you know. Anyway, but it's like minor criticisms. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. On that note, Steve, how are you going to score it?
6.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on a 6 for this one, and Rich.
A solid 7 from me.
Cool. Okay, 2 6s and a 7 for The Inhabitant. Go check it out. Our next review is Lock and Load. Private security personnel Nick and Derek investigate the disappearance of their friend Agent Stokes after an undercover sting operation goes wrong. I'm really glad that IMDb actually had a coherent sentence to describe this film, because otherwise I'd be writing basically one of those conspiracy boards with like loads of like red thread, you know, joining bits and pieces to try and understand what the fuck is going on with this film. Having said that, I did kind of enjoy this. I'll talk about this more in a minute. Over to Steve.
Yeah, you're right. It's all over the place. It really is. I mean, there's even some bits where the sound's missing.
Yep.
I think it's like a car crash and there's literally no sound of it and stuff like that. And it's not like a slow-mo, you know, we'll do it that way. It's just bits and pieces are missing. It is very, very cheaply thrown together. And yeah, I didn't have a clue what was going on at the time, I'll be honest with you. It kind of literally does just throw you in. And you've got these, and you're trying to catch up all the way through, and you haven't got. I'll be honest, I didn't have a clue what was happening, to be fair. It was just, right, let's watch him shoot shit and do one-liners. It's like not a Die Hard, but you know what I mean, that kind of early 90s throwback type thing.
It's very clear that the director, Nathan Shepka, who also plays one of the main characters, is a huge action fan. And he's been, you know, he's got the opportunity to sort of make his own action movie, and he's grabbed hold of it with both hands for sure.
Having said that, he also did Thing it, innit? When Darkness Falls, that we watched a while back.
Oh, so yeah.
He's obviously trying, you know, different genres and different styles, which I applaud him for. But this, I just thought was a bit. He needed a bit more focus, I think. To be fair.
When Darkness Falls, that was the one set in isn't it set in the fort in Portsmouth or something?
No, it was in the hills of Scotland. Oh,
it's the other one. It's a different one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, now I know which one you mean. Yeah, the one about the 2 hitmen. Sort of. That's the one. Yeah. Okay. Rich, how did you get on with Lock and Load?
Well, I don't know if you guys know, but this is a sequel to. It was originally called. I think it was originally called Holiday Monday 2: Brothers in Arms, but the original film Holiday was going to be released under its original title, Holiday Monday, but then it came out as the Bank Holiday Job in the end. We did get a screener for it. I did watch it, but I can't remember what it was about it. But we didn't end up reviewing it for whatever reason. So I don't think you guys saw it. But that was where these two characters are introduced. They are very much presenting this one as a you don't have to have seen the last one. It's kind of I think there's a little indication on the opening credits that the original title has been taken off and Lock and Load has been added, because there's like a little jump cut kind of thing. But I might be wrong on that. It might just be me sort of looking for something that wasn't there. But yeah, the it's a sequel, but it's not like a direct sequel in any sort of weighty sort of sense that you need to see it. But so mentioning that, I give it credit for the fact that it's a Scottish action movie, which there's not many of those. Nope. I think Arapaia in a similar vein is sort of kind of this, was a sort of a self-made, micro budget action filmmaker. I think Nathan Shepka is sort of following a similar kind of path. This very much reminds me of where British low budget action was in the
when we
sort
first
of
started reviewing, exactly.
Well, in the early to mid 2000s, I would say. I mean, it really reminds me of the films of Steve Lawson and Ross Boyask when they were starting out. I think there's the budget limitations, but also the energy and the sparks there. I think some of the cast in this are really good. There's some of the cinematography and lighting is really good in certain scenes. So there's the stuff with the chess master, who I think who's the woman who comes in sort of about half an hour in, 40 minutes. I can't remember, but there's the guy who's introduced at the start, who's like introduced as the villain, and he's got the beard and stuff. I thought he was really good, and I enjoyed their scenes. The action's quite ambitious. There's a mixture of everything. You've got gunfights, you've got martial arts, you've got explosions. There's some so you got like the opening scene, or one of the opening scenes where the sort of bus goes wrong kind of thing, and the guy gets revealed to be an agent,
Interpol,
and I just thought, unfortunately, he wasn't very good. It was like it didn't look like they picked the best actor for that. So so there's certain bits like that where it's just sort of I'm sort of trying to get into it, and that sort of comes off. It opens up with a quite ambitious sort of DMX style rap track, which I thought was an interesting choice. That's probably one of my favorite. There's some music in the film that I wasn't a fan of either. It's just not to my taste. But again, I think that's all I presume that all sort of succumbs to the sort of the low budget sort of collective kind of feel about it. There's probably, it's probably all friends banding together, friends have got bands and whatever, everyone's getting together to make this film, which is fine. It's good. It's not going to be for everyone. I think this is an action movie for action fans, but I think you've got to be a particular kind of action fan. You've got to be really sort of
budget action fan.
This is you got to. It's just kind of a deep one to go for. I mean, there's a lot of, in America especially, there's loads of sort of micro budget action filmmakers that are not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Not least some of them are not my cup of tea, but because I like things at a certain level. But I thought this was good. I think it's too long. Again, if you're working with such a low budget, and I think you need to rein it in a bit. I think for me, this on the setup and the stuff they do here, I would prefer as like a short film, or at least a shorter film. So like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15, hour and 20, say kind of a Steve Lawson length. This was about 20 minutes too long, but you do get plenty of sort of bang for your buck, I would say. The confusion of the story, I'm not so worried about it. It sort of finds its way and it becomes quite standard, and you get it all leads to a very, very action-packed finale. I think we're going to see Nathan Shepka's sort of directing, writing, acting, you know, making these sort of vehicles for himself and stuff. But he's also, like you say, doing these thrillers and things. He's doing. He works on, like you say, When Darkness Falls with our mate Tom Jolliffe, who he's also done.
It's also in his new one,
the Baby
in the Basket.
Yeah, they're working on that together, which is a very different kind of film to this. So again, I mean, you look at Nathan Shepka's filmography, he's been at this for quite some time already. You know, he's worked on loads of stuff, still, you know, working within the sort of confines, you know, lots and lots of short films to sort of get him started, and he's building up his experience with these films, trying, you know, new challenges and stuff. So I think he's got, you know, we're going to see him move up and get better and better and better in the same way that we did to a degree with like Arapaia, although he's sort of his films went in I don't know, some like Instant Death, for example, where Lou Ferrigno goes around Bristol. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was actually.
But yeah, so, and the same with Ross Boyask, you know, some of his early stuff I'm not a massive fan of, but, you know, we've ended up with things like I Am Vengeance, Retaliation and stuff, and I can it's not within the bounds of possibility that I can see Nathan Shepka getting to that kind of point of doing quite a slick, you know, quality action film like that.
Yep. There's definitely a lot to like here. I mean, you know, you have to take a lot with a pinch of salt because it is very low budget. And as you say, Rich, it is too long. And I wish they had, you know, refined those action scenes a bit, shortened them, you know, ditched half of the extras, and just sort of made, you know, a few tighter sort of, you know, action scenes. Basically, there are some interesting bits with the camera. You know, they do a few nice little tricks with the camera, like when there's a current trope of like when someone flips over and the camera flips with them.
It's the upgrade thing, isn't it? It's that the James Wan kind of Lee Wanell thing.
We got that in there, but at the same time, there's the whole shootout, which is about 3/4 of the way through in that sort of warehouse with all the sort of plastic barrels and stuff like that. The camera is very static during that scene. You know, I mean, it cuts between various people, but the camera is just like placed there and it doesn't move at all. You know, film somebody shooting, then it moves, you know, move to another guy shooting and stuff like that. It would have been more interesting if the camera was moving or a bit more fluidity to it. Some, you know, there's some continuity errors or seem to be in that scene where there's 3 guys stood side by side and they all get shot, and then like 2 scenes later they're all back up again, sort of firing as if they hadn't been shot at all. Silly things like that. I did like a lot of the martial arts. A lot of the hand-to-hand stuff was good. There was a bit of gapping at times, but that's, you know, I'm not going to sort of really pick holes in it too much because, as I said, it is a low-budget film and they've got limited resources. So, and what they actually managed to put on screen overall, I thought was actually pretty decent. My favourite scene in there, which almost seems like a bit of a nod to Mission Impossible, the latest one, when they get in their little car and sort of knock the doors off, you know, and sort of driving around this warehouse. And a definite kudos to them for doing an action scene and using a really cheesy pop song over it. I thought that was really good. It's something I've thought about doing myself. You know, if I sort of get my bloody screenplay sorted, I was like, I've got a B-52 song I want to use for a fight scene, sort of thing. You know, that sort of silliness, and they managed to do it, and I thought they did it pretty well. And the 2 leads, you know, Nathan Shepka and Colin McDougall, I thought they've got good chemistry. That, you know, they work really well together. So I got no issues there at all. I would certainly check out more from these guys. That's for sure. Anyway, how are we going to score it? Rich, over to you.
I'm gonna go a 6 on this one.
I'm going to join you on a 6. Yeah, definitely shows promise. This.
Yeah, I'll go a 5.
2 6s and a 5 for Lock and Load. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is The Gateway Drug. Billy and her friends have gathered to try a new illicit drug which reportedly opens your sixth sense. The drug is meant to help her contact a dead relative, but instead brings her to the attention of things which do not want to be noticed. A very stellar short, this one, Rich. Well done, mate, for for finding this. You know, it's got a great setting. You know, literally somebody's front room. I think it works really, really well. Yeah, this just ups the tension brilliantly. You know, the editing I thought was really good. It was a bit confusing at first because I hadn't actually read the synopsis. I'm thinking why. You know, it seemed really, really coincidental that they happen to take a drug and there's this thing there. If you see what I mean. You know, it's like, oh, you're taking the drug, it must kill you. But reading the synopsis, it kind of made a bit more sense, a little bit. But yeah, this was really, really well done. Some of the special effects were excellent. There's a bit where somebody's face crumples.
Yeah.
That was really, really well done. Yeah, Steve, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, it was good. Short, sharp, built the tension, did what it should do. Performances were good, direction was good, the editing was great. All in all, I really enjoyed this one, to be fair. It was unexpected. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. With the name of it as well, that kind of threw me from what I was expecting, I think. But yeah, all in all, really enjoyed this one. Good choice, Rich.
Yeah, the cast are really good in this, and you know, I'm pretty sure I recognise a couple of their faces in this. I just like how clueless they were. You know, it was like, oh, somebody died. Oh shit, you know.
Yeah. Well, the main one's Kaylee Cowan, who was in Willy's Wonderland. The Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was in that.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Rich, what could you tell us about this as you curated this one for us?
This is from director Andy Chen, who's been on our radar for a while. We've already covered quite a few of his shorts, including which are quite diverse in their genres, but he does sort of lean towards horror. We've covered Swarm, which was that sort of mixed martial arts thing with zombies with the I think it was the father-daughter or something.
That's right.
Fiona, which was the fan film based on Shrek, which was like
that was really good. Yeah.
And also Crooks, which was the comedy with Soft Putsley, and you know, that where the two girls are trying to rob
the convenience store
to
beat them to it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah. So this one popped up again. I think like you guys, or at least Steve, you know, the title sort of didn't grab me at first. I was just thinking, I'm not sure about that, you know, because I got all this big long list of things to watch, and I was just like, not sure. But then I was like, give it a go, and I understand the title. The title's actually quite clever once you've seen the film. It's a 9-minute film. It's very, you know, like it's sort of the quality I've come to sort of expect, but the cinematography and everything's really good. I would put this next to because what it reminded me of, being a similar kind of thing, was She Comes from the Woods short, which I don't. I'm not sure if we covered that, or you. I know we talked about the feature film,
we talked about the short as well, but yeah.
But the short is, you know, it's that kind of summoning kind of storyline, but also in terms of the production values and stuff. I think this paces itself really well in sort of revealing things, and you know, the character stuff. It's over 9 minutes, but you know, you've got the initial sort of introduction, and then the sort of a little bit of exposition, and then the sort of, you're not quite sure what's going to happen, then the things start happening, and the stuff that happens is fairly standard sort of horror stuff, but you know, there's only so much you could do. But I thought with what this sort of concept, which possibly has been done elsewhere, I thought felt really novel and quite clever. And I liked the way the execution of it, and say the cast, and say, like you say, that some of those moments are really, really effective. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favourites of the year so far. Probably one of my favourite of Andy Chen's films so far as well. I think it's really, really good. Yeah, it's really good.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we don't score the shorts, but we certainly recommend them. And you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Starry Eyes. Sarah Walker is an aspiring actress, attending auditions and working at a local diner. When she lands an audition for a horror film called The Silver Scream, Sarah slowly comes to realize how much she yearns for stardom and what she will do to achieve it. Steve, now, I know you don't like sort of the blood and guts kind of stuff. So there is something which we will discuss shortly. But overall, how did you get on with Starry Eyes?
It's not, to me, it's not been a great week this week, I'll be honest. I don't know. It was just, nothing happens for about 45 minutes to an hour. Really. She goes for this audition, it gets a bit weird, but then goes back again. And, it's the old casting couch type of thing. And then nothing happens again for 20 minutes. I thought it just dragged. And it's also one of them films where I don't think there's any really likeable characters. I think they're all assholes, to be fair. Very self-centered, very... I mean, I suppose they're supposed to be because they're in Hollywood, but it just didn't do much for me. And then all of a sudden it changes from slightly weird to just over the top.
It goes very sort of Martyrs sort of level, sort of blood and guts for a little bit.
It just goes.
So is this anything like? Because I didn't get a chance to see it. Is it sort of in the setup like Nicole Kidman's To Die For kind of thing?
No.
And it also sounds a little bit like Neon Demon as well, from what you're saying. Is it like any of those? Either of those films?
Not really. So we got this actress, Sarah. She leaves with other actresses. One of which is the most passive aggressive bitch you've ever come across, Erin. Yeah, she really is, isn't she? And this sort of little clique they have of sort of independent filmmakers and stuff, and at the same time she's going for these auditions, and she goes for this one with this sort of well-known but sort of weird company, and she fails the audition to begin with.
Yeah, it's kind of like an A24.
Yeah. And so she fails the audition, but when she's in the loo, she has this thing where she'll sort of pull her hair and have a little fit, as if she's sort of punishing herself, and that gets noticed by the casting people, so they bring her back in and make her do it again, and and so she's sort of slowly working her way closer to getting this role, but it comes to a point where they go, well, what are you prepared to do, Sarah? Exactly what are you prepared to do? But as Steve says, at that point, really, as she kind of starts transforming and becoming sort of more self-centered and all the rest of it, while her friends are being complete bastards and bitches and everything at the same time. But there's this sort of weird sort of cult element. There's some sort of a cult sort of thing going on with this film studio and the chairman of it. It's a bit sort of almost eyes wide shut in that regard. But yeah, and it is this sort of transformative things. A lot of sort of body horrors. Her physical appearance starts deteriorating, and all this. She sort of tries to push sort of further, and then these people sort of take it more of a sort of guiding hand. But yeah, there comes a point in the film where it becomes very sort of bloody, and it almost seems to come out of nowhere, for a moment. I'd actually forgotten how sort of how bad it gets. The bit with the dumbbell
yeah,
is really, really full on. But there was
Had
lots
you
of
seen
other.
it before?
Yes, I've got it on disc as well. Yeah, but yeah, this is one I really do enjoy. I think, I mean,
sick bugger.
I know, but I do. It's because it is, you know, it sort of has these sort of different levels. Because on the one side is this sort of like thing about the supernatural, you know, this sort of occult element. It's also about filmmaking, which is, you know, I do like films which are sort of set within the film world as well. But also it's this sort of almost like this damning indictment of the whole Miramax, you know, casting couch kind of scenario, you know. It sort of does sort of lay it all out. So, well, yeah, this you know, this is the horror version, but this sort of thing does go on, or, you know, more or less. I always remember Ross sort of saying, you know, about people like Jai Courtney and yeah, well, let's say Jai Courtney. So how many dicks did he suck to actually get to become, you know, a prominent sort of star in Hollywood? But there you go. It is that sort of thing, unfortunately. It is really well done. I do like the soundtrack as well. I like the way it's directed. I just really enjoy it.
On there,
but then again, as you guys know, I loved the Neon Demon. So, you know,
don't even get me started on that shite.
So, you know, take that as you will. But yes, I really like this. Steve really didn't, unfortunately, didn't quite click with him. I watched it again tonight, you know, thinking, well, I thought I'll skim through it just to sort of remember, and I ended up watching the whole thing because it is that good film. Well, there you go. So
who directed it?
Good question.
It
was two people actually, Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer. I really liked it. Pity Steve didn't. We don't score the throwbacks. I recommend this one. You can find it on Plex, possibly other places as well,
and FreeVee as well.
FreeVee, indeed. Yeah. So yeah. Unfortunately, you're going to get ads, but you know, otherwise, it's a free film, and it's a very good one as far as I'm concerned. It's different. You know, it's not your sort of typical sort of horror at all. But I really liked it. So there you go. That is Starry Eyes. And that's the end of this week's show. So thanks to Steve and Rich for joining me, talking about these films. All of us nicely surprised, I think, by Operation Napoleon, although me and Rich liked it a bit more than Steve. The Inhabitant, a bit of a mixed bag, and Lock and Load, ambitious for the budget, that's for sure. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest, and also the Short Shots, where you'll find links to, I'll do that again. And also the Short Shots, where Rich puts a link to new shorts every evening around about 8 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.